Well, I'm back on stream. It's Sunday, July 28th. Don't really do weekend streams. I'll just be completely honest. Like, I've lost a lot of motivation to do this channel. Not because, like, I'm not passionate about the sport or anything like that. It's just more or less like, you know, a lot of my attention is veering away from YouTube. Not because, like, I'm not passionate about Chelsea or the World Cup or anything like that. I'm just over the past few weeks, my content has slowed down a little bit. And it's mainly due to the fact that I've lost some motivation to really do it. Um, I am understanding the grind and the how difficult it is really to get the following and get the consistent um what's the word I'm looking for, traction, I guess. But you know going over it in my head a lot lately, I want to make sure that if I'm doing something like this, I just need to be consistent with it, not do it every so often. You know, Early on while I've had this channel, I felt like I was doing pretty well with the consistency and just being on every morning, doing, you know, news, giving my reactions and all that stuff. But over the past 2 or 3 weeks, like my motivation for doing this stuff has really dropped. Mainly because I just want to be a more of a spectator and watch other people give their opinions and then like form my own opinions to myself. But, you know, I've had people come onto my shorts in my other videos lately and then ask like where I've been at, and I don't want to let those people down. It's clear that there's people on here that value the opinion I have and value the kind of analysis I can give just from my perspective. But just the reason why I haven't been on here as much is like I've lost some motivation to really get on here and do this consistently. But if I don't stay consistent, then I don't think I'll ever make it on this platform. So, I got to get myself remotivated and re energized to do this stuff. I mean, I've had opportunities to get on stream, get on camera, and talk about this stuff. But, I just wanted to take time to myself and just try to get my mind right when it comes to getting on here. It's not that anybody comes in here and actually like bothers me or anything like that. It's just having the motivation to actually do it. But you know, with the World Cup now in the knockout phases, this is where you start to see all the crazy games, all the crazy interactions, all the, you know, just everything that you love about the World Cup is going to start showing its face. And as of right now, South Africa are playing against Canada, and right now it's still 0-0, I believe. But there's a lot that game has to offer in terms of will South Africa actually create the upset that a lot of people think they could, or will Canada actually show up in this game? And I haven't watched it, honestly. I haven't turned it on. It's just not a game that I'm interested in. Honestly, given that this is the first knockout game, like I'm not really too interested in watching it. But when I get into my predictions and what I think the knockout round is really going to entail, like in my original preview for this, I had Brazil versus Spain in the World Cup final, and that can still be a possibility. But looking at the knockout bracket now and like looking at how everything's been shaping up, there's going to be a lot of upsets, I think, in these knockout rounds. And I think one of the teams that we're going to have to pay attention to here is England. But before I get into predicting out the World Cup, there's been updates on Granit Xhaka in terms of what's going on with him, the kind of fee that was offered to Sunderland, which I'm not too happy with because like this just feels like it's going to be a Mike Mignon situation all over again, and it's just not something that, I'm a fan of going through. again, being a Chelsea fan and seeing that we're only 5 million off from actually obtaining him. So if we pull over to Twitter, bro, and we just go over the ridiculousness that Chelsea have offered Sunderland for Granit Xhaka, bro. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Is like we cannot continue to lowball these teams with no European football whatsoever. If you want to get these kind of players through the door, you essentially need to pay what the other club is asking for, right? So I'll pull over here real quick. Let me go ahead and get off this page real quick because that's where I'm doing my predictions, honestly. And give me 1 second while I grab something out of the living room. 1 second. All right. So, first piece of business, bro, that I find outrageous, right? This is what I'm saying about this ownership and why these lowball offers cannot continue to happen. Chelsea had an opening bid of £8 million rejected by Sunderland for Granit Xhaka. They have now closed the doors and they want to keep the player, as David Ornstein reported. Chelsea remain keen on Xhaka because he wants Chelsea and he wants to move back to London to reunite with Xabi Alonso. Right? So then we pull over here. They feel that Chelsea's approach has lacked respect for both for them and the player. No further bids will be entertained. I don't believe that. I think Chelsea will come back in at some point and actually give a respectable offer. But what evidence do we have of them actually doing that? If we're going off of what would happen with Mike Mignon last season, Chelsea will not be going back in for whatever fee they're asking for. £8 million to me seems like they're testing the waters to see what they would do. Clearly, they feel disrespected. I agree with them. This is a disrespectful offer, right? Then it says here, Xhaka is pushing to go to Chelsea, but Sunderland are blocking the deal, especially because Chelsea's bid of $8 million was not enough. The player is going to play a role in this story because they don't want to lose him or sell the player, and they're being very tough. Xhaka is going to have to be that guy that pushes the move, and we'll come over here to Bab.
Xhaka and Chelsea is done on the contract because there is no problem. Xhaka wants to go to Chelsea, only wants to go to Chelsea and reunite with Xabi Alonso, but Sunderland are being tough in negotiations. Sunderland are being strong in conversations because they don't want to sell Xhaka. And it's not just a technical decision, it's also to show that not any club can go to Sunderland and get their players. So Sunderland feel very strong on a financial point of view at a fantastic moment of their project. So Sunderland say, we don't want to sell the player, especially because Chelsea opening bid, £8 million. I told you yesterday in a video, late night, I told you Chelsea bid will not be, as reported, 30 million euros, 30 million pounds or whatever. Forget about this. Chelsea will offer way less than this. And at the moment, Chelsea are offering 8, 9 million pounds, and it is not enough to convince Sunderland. So at the moment, no agreement. Sunderland don't want to sell, but obviously the player is going to also play a role in this story, and we have to understand how Chelsea and the club will be in conversations. So let's see. Let's wait on this one. Then, guys, 2 more stories I wanted to discuss with you today. The first.
So, again, it's like I said here. Chelsea needed to come in with at least 20 million euros, bro, or pounds. At least 20 million. 8 million is such a disrespectful offer. You might as well sign a kid out of their academy for that price. If you're going to send money for a player like that has European experience, that has won trophies, that guided Sunderland, a team that was promoted the season before to the Premier League, and they get into the Europa League. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro. Sunderland have every single right to sit here and say, no, it's a disrespectful offer. Because it is. It really is, bro. If you want to get the players that you need, Chelsea do not have Champions League football, bro. That means they're not going to be able to leverage over teams like Sunderland to say, look, you guys are in the Europa League, but we have Champions League. If Chelsea were in the Champions League next season, they would probably still have to pay about 20 million to get them, but they would be in a stronger position to negotiate. But they're not. If Xabi Alonso wants to get this guy through their door, he needs to go talk to these owners and say, look, man, he is going to absolutely help us get us back to where we need to be, but you guys cannot be lowballing teams like this. And I think Xabi Alonso understands that as well. So what do I think is going to honestly happen? I think Chelsea come back in and they tell him, look, we're sorry for that bullshit offer. This is the money that you are looking for, right? I think the deal ultimately will get done, but it's just Chelsea have to come back in with the more respectable offer, bro. You can't continue to lowball teams like this. Maxime Lacroix, on the other hand, right? That seems like it's going to be done. Chelsea are paying 55 million or whatever to get this guy. If you can pay 55 million to go get a center half that you need, I don't think getting Granit Xhaka should be too much of an issue, which means somebody in the midfield will be sold. Somebody in midfield needs to be sold, in my opinion, to really insert Xhaka into this team. That's just me. But do not allow this to be another Mike Mignon situation where personal terms are agreed, but you can't get the transfer fee right. Stop being cheap. Stop being ridiculous with these offers. And just pay the money. Just pay the money. We're not in a strong negotiating position anyway. Pay the money. You're selling players. Malo Gusto is all but set to leave. Use some of that money and pay Sunderland what they need, what they want. Get Granit Xhaka through the door. He'd be a 2-year stopgap to go get the actual midfield player that we need. Now, will Enzo Fernandez actually leave? You're not hearing much about it now. You're hearing the same shit over and over and over again about how he's close to a going. Real Madrid are going to sit here and actually put in a bid for him. We'll see after the World Cup. I'm still holding my position that it's a 50-50 chance he stays. That's just me. But if we're going to get into these knockout round stuff, bro, I just want to touch a little bit on Chelsea because, there's been a lot of news coming out about it. I'm not going to talk on Palestra too much, but I do like the profile that we actually signed here. He's a wingback. I'm looking forward to see what he can do at that right wingback spot. He can also play on that left-hand side too. I'm not going to pretend to know I know everything about him, but I'd be interested to see how he fares at a big club like Chelsea, honestly. I'm really interested to see it. But if we're going to get into these knockout stage games, bro, there's a lot to talk about here. A lot. So we saw a few teams yesterday qualify for the knockout rounds for the first time in their history. Congo, a team that, if I'm being honest with you, England are in a world of trouble. England are in a world of trouble, bro. And I'm going to tell you why in a few seconds. All right. So England, if we can find them on this bracket real quick. Here we are. I'm going to do their game first. So I can't even pick them. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I need to do something real quick. Give me 1 second. All right. I think I'll do it on here, actually. Be a little bit easier. All righty. Let me go ahead and reshare my screen. All right. So the first game that I was talking about here, England versus the DR Congo. I'm going to be real, bro. England are in a world of trouble. A world of trouble. The DR Congo, I think, is going to give them. Now, Panama was a tough game for them, and so is Ghana. But I think the DR Congo is going to actually give them a run for their money. Now, I think England do ultimately win that game, but they're going to be going through it in that game. There's a lot of Premier League experience in that squad as well. But I think with the lack of no Reece James, and you have Trent Alexander-Arnold too on the bench, by the way, and he's not even being used. Right? Elliot Anderson, a guy that just got signed by Man City for 121 million, looked horrific yesterday. Harry Kane can't do it all. Bukayo Saka, again, a guy that is just not showing up in the big games, not showing up when you really need him. Marcus Rashford looks out of his depth, honestly. I'm going to be smart here, and I will pick England to go through, but I think that game goes extra time, and it would not surprise me if that game does go to penalties, but I think England do advance. I think England do find a way, but it's not going to be easy, bro. It just won't be easy. The game that's currently going on right now, I'm going to check the score, but I did pick Canada to win this game, honestly. Yeah, it's still in the first half, but I'm going to pick Canada to go through. I think this does go to extra time. But again, I think Canada's road ends at the round of 16, man. Germany versus Paraguay. Now, I was going to do a short about this, but I ended up wanting to go on stream to talk about these knockout matches. I think Germany could be also in a world of trouble here. Because if they go through, their next game is against France. I think France do beat Sweden. But Germany, if they don't take their chances and they're not ruthless the entire game, I think Paraguay is going to give them a harsh game. Because Paraguay don't concede goals. Yes, they conceded 4 against the United States, but they got into this tournament because they did not concede goals. They were sound defensively, strong, they communicate. And I think on the counterattack, Paraguay can be very, very dangerous. But I think when push comes to shove, Germany should be able to beat them. I think they beat them in 90 minutes, but Paraguay is not going to make it easy. I think Germany do advance. Probably a scoreline of like maybe what 1-0, maybe 2-0. But still, I think it's going to be very tough. One of the games of the round here, Netherlands versus Morocco. Now, the Netherlands have honestly shown themselves that they can get goals, they can score. Virgil van Dijk, this will be his last international tournament, in my opinion. He wants to go out strong. The Netherlands, I think, can beat Morocco. But what do I think is going to honestly happen here? Morocco is not the same team it was from 4 years ago, where they're strong defensively and they want to hit you on the counterattack. Morocco now is more a possession-based side that will like to take their chances. They set traps on you to win the ball high up the pitch, but they're a lot more possession-based now. And I think that could play in favor of the Dutch. So I'm going to put the Netherlands to beat them in the round of 32, which I think this matchup would have been a lot more. It would have been a lot more friendlier to the Moroccans if this was in the quarterfinals, I think. But because it's in the round of 32, I think the Dutch do beat them. I think it could go to extra time as well. But I think the Dutch ultimately do pull away, and I think they can win this game 3-1. Brazil versus Japan. Now, this is a game here where Japan have looked like one of the better teams in this tournament, bro. They absolutely have. They're fluid. Their passing is crisp. They're strong defensively. And they're clinical. Now, Brazil has finally woken up. 2 consecutive 3-0 wins. They can do something if they beat Japan. Now, I think this is going to be their toughest test. Morocco was an interesting game for them, but I think Japan will give them the toughest test that they've had. I don't want to say Japan beat them, but it would not surprise me if Japan find a way to beat Brazil. But I think ultimately what's going to happen here is that Brazil find a way to beat them, because I think Carlo Ancelotti has finally found the way that he wants to play with this Brazilian team, and I think Brazil ultimately beat Japan. I think that goes to penalties, if I'm being honest with you, and I think Brazil ultimately will beat them in penalties. So I'll go Brazil. France and Sweden. I think there's nothing to really talk about here. I think Sweden just got in by the skin of their teeth in the knockout or in their group. But I think France right now are a well-oiled machine. I think Mbappe is trying to win that golden boot or 1-2. I think they want to get to a third straight final. I think France wiped the floor with Sweden, honestly. I don't think this game honestly is going to be close. I think France absolutely obliterate them. The Ivory Coast versus Norway. This game right here, I'm sorry, Erling Haaland, but I think the Ivory Coast beat Norway. I think the Ivory Coast are going to be a sneaky team in these knockout rounds, bro. I think it's going to be very tough for Norway to figure out this Ivory Coast midfield, for one, and two, I think on the counterattack, the Ivory Coast are very dangerous. I think the Ivory Coast honestly beat Norway in extra time. I think a lot of these round of 32 matchups will be going to extra time, honestly. I really do. Mexico versus Ecuador. Now, this is a game I really want to take my time and talk about here. Mexico versus Ecuador, I think, is a contrast of styles, really. Ecuador finally found the back of the net against Germany, and it's their biggest win in their history, honestly. There's a lot of Mexican fans out there that think that they're going to absolutely wipe up Ecuador. I don't think that's the case, bro. Mexico historically have found it very difficult to get to that fifth game. Has found it very difficult. Now, this game will be played in Mexico, obviously. It's going to be a heavy support for them. but don't sleep on the Ecuadorian crowd to have a say in what goes on in this game. If you're putting your money on who's going to win this game, it should be Mexico. But this is where I think we need to pay attention here. If Mexico have a bad start to this game, I think Ecuador will punish them. And I have a funny feeling that Mexico's World Cup run is going to end right here. It would be embarrassing as one of the host nations to go out in the round of 32, but I think Ecuador, honestly, are going to beat Mexico, dude. I really think that. Mexico had a pretty average group. South Korea was a huge disappointment in this group. I had them winning Group A, but they ended up going out after winning their first game. I think Ecuador, bro, I think that win against Germany gave them confidence, gave them momentum, and I think Ecuador are going to beat Mexico in Mexico. I'm going Ecuador, bro. I think Ecuador is going to beat them. And there's going to be major questions asked on, was this Mexican team actually ready to take that next step? And will they ever get to that fifth game? Now, it's around 32, right? But usually they get to the round of 16 and they lose because they play Argentina, they play Brazil. The year that they played the Dutch, it wasn't a penalty also. But they don't get past that first knockout round for a reason. I don't think anything changes here. I don't think anything changes here. I think Ecuador are going to beat Mexico, and there's going to be major questions asked on what is it going to take for Mexico to get to that fifth game. The USA versus Bosnia. Yeah, I mean, listen, we all saw that clip of like that reporter on ABC7 say like I can't even find them on the map. Why are we giving them extra motivation? Now you park that to the aside. The U.S. lost to Turkey in heartbreaking fashion, but they had already won the group, right? I think the U.S. needs to be careful here. I think set pieces are going to be Bosnia's escape to try to win this game, but I think the U.S. going forward have enough quality. And my only hesitation is our back line on set pieces. If we're not strong, if we're not communicating, if our goalkeeper does not have a commanding game, I think Bosnia can put 2 goals past us. My head is telling me that the US does win this game, but it's not going to be easy. It's out here in the Bay Area, but the US, I think honestly, do win this game, but I think it goes to extra time. So I'm gonna go with the US, and you just hope that you don't make the same mistakes you did against Turkey. Now, it was the USB team. We understand that. But again, Pochettino is going to, as the tournament wears on, he's going to need to find different tactical setups to go against these teams. The United States, I kept saying this. When they get to the round of 16, I think they get blitzed by whoever they play. But with the way it's looking, I'll be real, bro. I think the US, if they play Belgium, who I think is going to get to the round of 16, if they play Belgium, now Belgium beat us earlier on this year with their B team. It just worries me about when you play these UEFA nations, they've had such a difficult time beating them. So I'll go with the US to get through the round of 32, but the round of 16 is where I want to see a different tactical setup because Belgium, if we play Belgium, are not going to make it easy. They're going to have more possession. They have probably one of the greatest midfielders of this generation in their squad. We just need to be careful. Now, these matchups are wrong, I believe. I think Algeria is playing Switzerland, I believe. Let me see, because this is a different way to how it looked before. Let me pull up the photos real quick of how it is. Yeah, so Switzerland are playing Algeria and Senegal are playing Belgium. I think Belgium do win, honestly. And I'm going to go down here already. I think Switzerland also win. So I think Switzerland and Belgium go through. I think Algeria and Senegal go out in the round of 32. I'm going to just put those two because these matchups are wrong right there. But Portugal versus Croatia, that's another game here where Croatia at one point could have won the group, even though they lost to England 4-2 in the first game. Croatia still had a chance to win the group. But I think right in the game yesterday, Portugal versus Colombia, what a game that was, bro. What a game that was. But I think in this version of Croatia, in this version of Portugal, I think Portugal will go through. Spain versus Austria, I think Spain should obviously go through there. Argentina versus Cape Verde, as much as people want to see an upset, I think you're so far gone if people think Cape Verde is going to beat Argentina right now. So Argentina should go through. Colombia versus Ghana is an interesting game, but I think Colombia, they were a toenail away from beating Portugal yesterday. But I think ultimately Colombia should go through. Australia versus Egypt, I think Egypt beat Australia. So now you're looking at the round of 16. Germany, France, Canada, and the Dutch. Ecuador versus England. Brazil, Ivory Coast. Portugal versus Spain in the round of 16. Holy shit, bro. The USA versus Belgium. Argentina versus Egypt. Messi versus Mo Salah. And Switzerland versus Colombia. So here, I'm going to go France. Here, I'm going to go with the Dutch. Brazil versus the Ivory Coast. I think this is going to be a very, very, very close game. But I think Brazil ultimately will beat them. But it's not. I think this is another game that can go to penalties, honestly, or in extra time. I think Brazil will do it. Ecuador versus England. Now, this tie right here. I think England, like I said against Congo, I think they are in a world of trouble, bro. Because the side of the bracket that they're on, that I'm looking at on screen right now, you have Japan, Brazil, Ivory Coast, Mexico, Ecuador on that top end of the bracket. Give me 1 second, guys. I love you too. So, like I said, I just think the side of the bracket that England's on right now, I like a lot of the players on England, honestly, because I follow them in the Premier League, right? But I think England at this point, dude, they can't keep getting away with the poor play. And I just think as you get deeper into this tournament, because say England win, right? You're playing Brazil in the quarterfinals. I don't think England beat Brazil. So if I'm being honest here, and like this is what I keep saying about a team like Ecuador. Logic is telling me to pick England, but honestly, I think Ecuador will frustrate England enough to sneak past them. I think England goes out in the round of 16, bro. And questions are going to be asked about why wasn't Cole Palmer there? Why wasn't Phil Foden there? You maybe pushed Reece James too much. You know, Elliot Anderson, is he worth 121 million or whatever? You know, will Harry Kane be back for the next iteration of the World Cup? Is Bukayo Saka even a big game player? It's stuff like that, right? So I think the questions are going to be asked by the English FA, by the English media, about why this team cannot get over the hump. And I think there's a lot of arrogance in this England squad, bro. So I got Ecuador, man. I got Ecuador. Portugal versus Spain. This is going to be a war. I think, oh God, that's such a tough one to call. Portugal, Spain in the round of 16 is something you would see in like the quarterfinals or even the semifinals, bro. But as much as I like a lot of the Portuguese players, bro, and I do think like the overall roster with Portugal is slightly better than Spain. I'm gonna have to come back to that one to really think about it. USA versus Belgium. I've already said this, that whoever the United States plays in the round of 16, they're gonna get absolutely blitzed by whoever. The one thing I will say though is that if the Belgium team that showed up in these first two games shows up against this United States team, I think Belgium could lose. But I think if the team that showed up against New Zealand, that's ruthless, that started the game on the front foot, that was honestly ripping New Zealand a new asshole, I think the United States are going to get ruined. I think Belgium do beat the United States in the round of 16, but it's not going to be a game where the United States should be ashamed of themselves. When I say they'll get blitz, I think that they will get scored on early, and the United States will be putting on a pile of pressure for the remainder of the game. But I think if they get scored on twice early, I think it's going to be insanely difficult for Belgium or for the United States rather to actually come back in that game. After thinking about it, now I picked Spain to win the World Cup, bro. So I might stick to it. I think Spain knock out Portugal in the round of 16. Argentina versus Egypt. People are going to say that it's an easy run for Messi, honestly, but I think Argentina from top to bottom are just so well balanced and so well organized, and they want to win it again. So I think Argentina do knock out Mo Salah and Egypt in the round of 16. Colombia versus Switzerland. Colombia. That's just me. France, Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Brazil, Ecuador, Argentina, and Colombia. Let's start with Spain and Belgium. I think Spain beat Belgium. I don't think that game will be close. I think Spain advanced. France and the Netherlands. This game could be a very open game, very up and down game, probably a high scoring game of that too. But I think when you have Kylian Mbappe, when you have Ousmane Dembele, like you have Olise, you have a plethora of options in an attack, and their back line is probably a top 4 or 5 back line in the world. I don't see any other winner but France in that situation. Argentina and Colombia. Now, that tie right there, I think probably bigger than the World Cup final. Argentina versus Colombia, I think, is going to be the best game of this tournament. I really believe that. Colombia just looks so organized. They create opportunities. They have an electric winger out there on that left-hand side. And when James Rodriguez puts on that Colombian jersey, he turns into a different player. But is it going to be enough to beat Lionel Messi and this Argentina team that look like a well-oiled machine? As much as I would love to see it, I would love to see Colombia in the semifinals of a World Cup. I just think that whenever they play against Argentina, they shrink, right? If I'm looking at the all-time series between Colombia and Argentina, right? Let me go ahead and take a look at that. The last time that they played against each other was June 10th, 2025, where they tied 1-1. Enzo Fernandez actually got sent off in that game too. It was for the World Cup qualifiers, right? Historically, when these two teams play against each other, they played a total of 19 times, which is kind of crazy, actually. I think this is since the year 2000. Give me a second. Okay, yeah. Here we go. I was going to say. So they've had 45 previous meetings. Argentina has won 26, 9 draws, and Colombia have won 10 times. Nothing is telling me that that's going to change, but I think if there's a version of Colombia that can beat this Argentinian team, I think it's this version. But I just don't see it happening. I think Argentina do beat them. And I would love to see Colombia in a semifinal of a World Cup, bro. I think that would be special. I think it'd be more special than Argentina winning the World Cup, if I'm being honest with you. But we'll go with Argentina and Brazil versus Ecuador. I had this in the semifinals in my original predictions, but I think Brazil ultimately do get there. And look at the semifinal matchups we have here, man. You got France versus Spain and Brazil versus Argentina in the semifinals of the World Cup. I mean, Mbappe versus Lamine Yamal, Messi versus, I guess you can say, Neymar, even though, he hasn't been playing. France versus Spain. These two games are very tough to call. Very tough. But I just don't know, man. This is where it gets very tricky. I think Spain get them on penalties. And Brazil versus Argentina, probably the most famous international rivalry in the world. I did say Spain versus Brazil. But I think Argentina, bro. Argentina are going to get back to the World Cup final, man. And I think the ultimate winner in these two, then I'll go with France to get third. So ultimately, I think Spain beat Argentina in the World Cup final, and France beat Brazil in the third place matchup. Lamine Yamal will get his first World Cup trophy, and I think it's gonna solidify his case as already being one of the greatest players that we've ever seen. As much as I hate to say it, because he's a Barcelona cat, I truly do think that Spain are gonna find a way to win this World Cup. So those are my predictions. You guys can go ahead and comment when this posts live or whatever. You know, talk your shit. Tell me how crazy I sound, which I don't really care. But this is how I think it's going to go. So going over it again, you know, a lot of these games. Let's go ahead and put my name here so I can get this off my fucking screen. All right. So if we take a look at the bracket here, this is how I have it. And like I don't think like these are the wildest picks, honestly. But again, it would not surprise me if a few of these if a few of the results do flip, like France beating Spain, Brazil beating Argentina, whatever, you know, or Colombia probably has the biggest upset that we've ever seen in the quarterfinals against Argentina, which I will probably do everything I can to watch that game. I think that game is going to be spectacular, bro. Spectacular. But this is how I think it'll happen. I think Spain I'm still choosing Spain to win this. But I don't think it's going to be easy for them because they have a tougher side of the bracket. They would have to go through Portugal, Belgium, France, and then beat Argentina in the final. Like I said, I think the left side of the bracket is definitely tougher than the right side. Yes, you have your Brazils, your Englands, your Argentinas, your Colombias, but I think when you have a side of Belgium, the US, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, the Netherlands, France, and Germany, I think that's a tougher side of the bracket, man. I really do. But yeah, I mean, this is how I'm seeing it. This is how I think it's going to actually happen. Go ahead and drop your thoughts on what you guys think is going to actually happen in this World Cup, bro. I mean, it's crazy as it stands right now. If I can go ahead and check what's going on here with the Canada and South Africa game, it's still 0-0. I'm not surprised, honestly. There's only been 4 shots total, it looks like, in this entire game. No. There's been looks like 5 total shots on target the entire game. Yeah, well, it's like I said, man. Going back to the full screen here for a second. Give me a second, though. So it's like I said, lately I've lost a lot of motivation to get on this channel and actually do stuff on here. It's mainly because of the kind of content I'm doing, and like obviously there's other avenues for people to watch stuff. So like a lot of my time has been put towards my personal life rather than, you know, actually getting behind camera. Like my main motivation for doing this was just to get my opinion out there, specifically on Chelsea and a lot of the stuff that happens at that club. And over the past 2 or 3 weeks, like my content has slowed down a lot just because I've lost like the motivation to really do it. But I don't want to give up on it because I know I have a knack for talking and a knack for explaining how I see things. You know, I'm not looking for people to come on here or come in here and try to give me that boost that I need. Like I need to be able to do that myself. But I just feel like a lot of my motivation has died over the past few weeks with just doing this stuff. But if people still want me to come on here and stream, just talk about whatever, is on your guys' minds, like I don't mind doing that. But again, it's just like my main motivation for it has completely died down. Like maybe it's just because like we're in the World Cup portion of this year, and generally you want to do a lot of content for it, but I just found myself watching the games more than actually like reviewing it. And maybe it's just me waiting for the Premier League to come back to where I can feel more motivated to talk about like the games, what I've seen in it, because I'm more of a club guy than I am like international. This is why like you don't really see me talk about like the US as much, because like yeah, I watch them in the World Cup, I'll watch them in the Nations League or whatever, the Gold Cup or whatever, but it's not the same as watching Chelsea week in, week out. Like I don't have the same passion for the United States national team than I do for Chelsea. So I'm just hoping that my motivation for this channel will come back at some point. But I'm just not as motivated as I was when Chelsea were actually in season, even though they were shit this past season. Like I just don't have the same motivation right now to really do it. But with that being said, I'm gonna get off. Probably watch like the last of this South Africa and Canada game, see who advances. And yeah, I'm Jason, No Filter Chelsea. Drop a like, sub, comment, share the stream, and I'll see you guys on my